Welcome to Book Banter with me, your host, Dianne Burkhart. I hope you will join me every Wednesday as we explore all things to do with, well, books. Let's get on with our show today. Hello, my happy people. Today is November 22nd, and I am actually in the United States on vacation right now, visiting family for the holidays. I hope you are all looking forward to some wonderful time with your loved ones and getting out to do some of that beginning Christmas shopping or finishing it up if you're more industrious than I am. If you are looking for books for middle grade readers, today's guest author is the perfect one for you to be listening to. She has a fantastic epic fantasy book geared specifically to middle grade readers. So let's not waste any more time. Let's bring her onto the show. Please welcome to Book Banter with Dianne Burkhart, Leah Ann Brown. I always like to begin with just having my guests explain who they are and what they do.
Yes, my name is Leah Ann Brown. I'm an epic fantasy middle grade author. And I love writing fantasy for kids between the ages of 8 to 16. But really, my books are for all ages.
Well, and that's one thing that I was talking to another author about who writes young adult, is that so many adults really enjoy young adult fiction because it has all of those great aspects of great fiction, but not the explicit detail that you often get in adult books. So you have all of the adventure and the fantasy, but you don't have the gore and the violence and all of that. You get to just enjoy the story.
You do. Kind of like C.S. Lewis, The Chronicles of Narnia. So many families have enjoyed that. And I feel like that's like my book. It's just very fantasy, magical. And I've had a lot of families read it together too.
Oh, that's nice. I've actually seen some comments online where your book is compared to The Chronicles of Narnia.
Yes, it is. He was a huge inspiration.
So now you're actually on the West Coast. You come from Oregon.
Yes, I live in Southern Oregon. I've lived here pretty much all my life. So grew up here. I was born in Southern California, but when I was 4, we moved up here and been here ever since. And I absolutely love it.
How did being in that area kind of feed into your interest in nature and fantasy?
It had a lot to do with my imagination, and being in nature, I feel like just kind of inspires you. There's something about nature and creation that just kind of makes your imagination run wild. And so growing up, we have lots of forests, lots of trails to hike. I was inspired just to imagine as a little kid, and it's always stuck with me. Where does this trail go? This looks like a whole completely different realm when we go camping somewhere or on the coast. It was always just so fantastical in my head. So I was always imagining as a little kid. So nature had a huge impact on me.
So did you actually start writing stories as a child?
I did actually. Growing up, I actually struggled with dyslexia. So I wasn't full on writing and reading, although I did read a little bit, but it was such a struggle that my first book was actually a picture book, and I drew it in first grade. It was Mr. and Mrs. Toad, and I'll never forget it because I brought it home to my mom. I'm all, look at the story I drew. And I told her the story. And she's like, oh, maybe someday you will write a book.
Aww.
That always stuck with me growing up. That was an inspiration that I didn't even know that she was speaking into my future at that point.
That's amazing. So what does she think about your book?
Oh, she loves it, of course. Well, she's my mom, so she's a little partial, but she's like, it's amazing. How did you come up with all these characters and places? And so she absolutely loves it.
Now, even though you were struggling with dyslexia, you went on to get some pretty impressive credentials academically.
Yes, even though I struggled with dyslexia, it just made me work harder. I'm one of those people, I have to read every single word. So I'm not a quick reader. My dyslexia did get better as I got older. It's not as bad as it was when I was younger.
Mhm.
And I don't think it was very severe, but it was enough to just slow me down. I've always just, I don't know, overcome things and, like not let things hold me back. So in high school, I graduated at the top of my class. And then college, I did massage therapy, went to school for massage therapy, and then pharmacy technician license. I've always wanted to share that with other people too, other kids, that even though there's obstacles, you can overcome those things and you can do well in life. It just takes a little bit more work.
And I was really curious about that because it seems like pharmacy technician and massage therapy are not a logical pairing. So I was wondering if there was like a backstory to this as to why there were those two things.
Well, school wasn't always the most fun.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, well, massage therapy, I love working with people. I love people and I love making people feel better. So I am a people person. So I liked the idea of making someone feel better. So I went into massage therapy, which I love. I'm not doing it at this point in my life right now. I'm a stay-at-home mom with my boys and I homeschool them. But I loved that. But then also when the economy tanked, I wasn't making money. No one wanted massages.
Yeah.
The first thing to go to treat yourself. Yeah. So then I went back to school and I went to get my pharmacy technician license. And I've always been pretty good in math. And that was why I went into that. It was more practical.
So, well, and plus you can still be making people feel better, just in
it's
a different
true.
way.
It's true. There's a lot of customer service to that too.
Exactly. Now, one of the things I was wondering, I saw that you homeschool your boys. Your experience with your own dyslexia and your struggles in school, does that make it easier for you to explain things to your children as you're teaching them?
I think so. Just knowing that both of my boys are different. One is really good at reading and the other one struggles. So I think it does help me understand that everyone's goes at their own pace. And just because you struggle and you can't do something very well, that it doesn't mean that you won't grow up and do well at it later on. It just, everyone has their own pace. So I think it does. I think encouraging my kids, part of learning is making mistakes and it doesn't have to be perfect. I definitely encourage them and inspire them to be creative too.
And I think that's one thing that a lot of people do not understand, that you can absolutely excel in one subject and be absolutely horrible in another one. When I was in junior high, I was such a voracious reader. I was actually reading Shakespeare. I had a leather-bound edition of all the works of Shakespeare. I was reading that in junior high for fun.
Oh, wow.
Loved it. But if you asked me what 9 times 7 was, I had no idea. I was absolutely horrible at math. And people didn't understand that that was possible. They thought, okay, I was just being lazy in those other ones. It's like, no, they don't make sense to me.
Yeah.
And I think the world is starting to wake up a little bit to that not everybody learns the same way. You have to find what works to teach that person.
Yes, it does. Yeah, the same. I was good in math, but terrible in reading and writing and spelling. But I had a teacher show me memorization really helps. And so when I was able to start memorizing things is when my dyslexia actually got better. So it was just learning how to navigate and how my brain processes and learns. It's all one way. This is how we learn, but it's not, there's so many different ways how kids learn. So
see, and I think that has to be so beneficial to your boys when you're helping them to do their work.
Yes. Yeah. I love spending time with them and teaching them. Not that it's always easy, but you get some pushback, but for the most part, it is. I enjoy it so much, being able to pour into my kids and teach them and inspire them and be one-on-one with them.
Now, your work with them, did that help you create the study guide for your book?
Yes, actually, because I am a homeschool mom, it's one of those things where it's like, oh, that extra resource is great for people that homeschool their kids, or even teachers. If they get my book and if they want to have a test or make sure the kids are reading the book, or reading comprehension, all those things are things that we as teachers or homeschool moms want our kids to know and have. So it's just an extra resource for my readers.
So now's a good point. Why don't you tell us about your book?
So my book is Chronicles of the Hidden Realms, Return of the Light. It's an epic fantasy for middle grade kids, and it's about Isabella and Peter. They're a brother and sister, and their friend Sarah. They get pulled into a realm that they don't know. So Isabella and Peter grew up thinking that they were just normal kids living life until this dark lord sends light snatchers to come and get them. So they figure out that they're from another realm and they have to return, and destiny calls them to return the light back to their realm. And so it's a very magical story of them stepping into their destiny, overcoming fear and obstacles, and their friend Sarah is along the way. And so there's a lot of friendship and coming of age in my book. Lots of fantastical characters I created, but I also have dragons, trolls. So I have some traditional fantasy characters.
Where did you get the cover art for your book?
My friend Angela Hughes, who you have interviewed before, she found a gal on Fiverr, and I had some art done for the inside of my book, and I'm like, I might want her to do my book cover. So she did one picture for me for the inside of my book, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I absolutely love it. And so I asked her to do the outside of my cover too, and she did an amazing job. So her name is Cindy Focheco. It's a little hard to pronounce, but she is an amazing artist from Albania.
Oh, wow. I love this. So, and my favorite part is the dragon up on the top.
Right. In fantasy, you have to have dragons, right?
That's true. So what was your inspiration for this story? Where did it come from?
Well, a lot of my inspiration, came from nature. The whole front of this, I wanted to show the waterfall, and they actually travel through waterfall. So it's like a portal with a magical key. So they put the key in the waterfall and it turns into a portal, like a door to another realm. And so nature was a huge inspiration. Growing up, I'd see waterfalls where I live. Silver Falls is a specific area, and that is actually mentioned in my book, Silver Falls. I always wondered as a kid, I'm like, what's behind the waterfall? Could it be like a whole nother world? And so that was my inspiration for how they travel to each realm. Some other inspirations were my mother and grandmother. They were very creative. They are storytellers. My grandma has passed away, but she would tell us stories, Grimm fairy tales and those stories. And my mom would always tell us stories. She'd tell us Bible stories, David and Goliath, people overcoming those huge obstacles. So all of that was an inspiration. And C.S. Lewis. So the Chronicles of Narnia was a huge inspiration because it's the kids. They go to another realm and they're overcoming things, overcoming fear and stepping into their destinies. So similar themes, but definitely a completely different world. So,
and I have to admit, I noticed the key that's in the word hidden, and I wondered if that had a significance to it.
Yeah, that's how they travel. So there's only 2 keys for each realm. And if you have the key, you just speak where you want to go and you put it in the waterfall and a portal opens.
That is so cool. I love that.
Thank you.
Now, I have to ask, since you did struggle with dyslexia, do you have a dyslexia-friendly version?
I don't yet, but I do want to put it on audiobook because I'm an independent author. I have to have the finances. So that's my next venture, is putting it on audiobook, mainly for that reason, because as a kid, I would listen to audiobooks too.
Well, and there is a dyslexia-friendly font that's available.
You know what? I didn't know that.
Yeah, one of my other authors that I had talked to who does young adult books and like young readers, she puts out a regular version, but she also puts out a version in a dyslexia friendly font that is supposed to be easier for people with dyslexia to read.
See, they're always coming out with new things. I did not know that.
Yeah, I had never heard of that until I interviewed her.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
And
Well,
I
I
think
need
you
to
can
look
just
into
download
that.
it online.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I need to look into that. Definitely.
Now, whenever you decided to publish this book, did you even consider querying to publishers, or did you just already know you wanted to do self-publishing?
Well, for me, I already knew I wanted to self-publish. I mean, I kind of researched both, and I had friends who did self-publishing and it went well for them. I actually used a hybrid company. So everything was all laid out for me, which was really nice.
Hmm.
But I don't know, the idea of them possibly changing my book in any way,
Yeah.
or I didn't like that. And then I also how long it takes to the query process. And I've had friends who queried and got so many rejections. And I know it's part of the process,
Hmm.
but for me, it was like, I just want my book out there. And
Yeah.
I'm willing to to pay to do that.
Now, do you have a street team? Do you have ARC readers that you have go through your book before you publish, or did you just go
Yeah.
with an editor and go?
Yeah, so I did. I had a lot of friends who are readers and a few writer friends that are readers and wanted to read my arc. So that helped. I would say the writer community has been really important
Hmm.
for me and getting my book out there, and just the support too you have from other writers is just so great, so encouraging.
Oh, yeah.
There's such a community, but just to inspire and encourage and champion each other
Hmm.
in writing. And it really does help. And a lot of people do want to help you and see you succeed. And it's really encouraging to be in that community.
Yeah, one thing that somebody had mentioned to me, it's like, well, aren't you guys competing against each other? It's like, not really, because most readers, if you read fantasy, you don't just read one fantasy author and that's all you ever read.
Yeah, exactly.
You read many. And so
Yeah.
if you have a fantasy author and she has friends who write fantasy and you see, oh, she liked that book and you like what she writes, you're going to go try the other one too. You just kind
Yeah.
of keep bringing people along with you in the whole process
Yeah.
and sharing readers because readers want to have a variety. They don't just want the same person and the same book over and over again.
It's true. It's true because most readers will read just tons of books a year. So it's great. Yeah, it's not a competition at all, really.
So now this is the point of the show that we like to do 5 quick questions that never turn out to be quick, but I refuse to give up. So are you ready?
I'm ready.
Question 1. Since you homeschool, do you teach home ec to your boys?
Yes, I think it kind of happens naturally. My boys see me do things and they want to do it with me. So my boys will cook with me, bake with me, we'll build stuff together. So I feel like, yeah, it's just something that happens naturally because they're home with me.
What's their favorite thing to make?
Ooh, like cooking
Yeah.
wise? Well, I will say in October, their favorite thing to make are popcorn balls. So we make the caramel and they help me, heat it up. And then we go and we form all the little popcorn balls together. So they
Aw,
absolutely love that. It's a
that's
lot of
fun.
fun.
That would be
Yeah.
so great. Question 2. What is your favorite sci-fi or fantasy TV show or movie?
Ooh, TV show or movie. I love fantasy and sci-fi. Well, I would say Star Wars is one of my favorite movies, and The Lord of the Rings. We watch those every year, usually around winter time when it's cold outside and we have more time to stay in. So I would say those two are my favorite movies.
So I was
TV
definitely
series,
expecting Star Wars since I saw Halloween costumes this year.
right? Yes, we all dressed up, and the Mandalorian
Yeah,
too. So yeah,
just got to tell
oh,
you, absolutely fabulous. Loved it.
thank you. It was
So,
so fun.
yeah, we are huge Star Wars fans over here. I'll tell you, our apartment that we rent is furnished, and the lady who's the landlady, she is an interior designer and decorated this apartment. And when we moved in, we took down a painting in the living room and had it professionally wrapped and protected and stored and put up a 5 panel Darth Vader picture.
Nice.
She was not happy.
She's like, "What'd you do?" That's great. But you
Like,
want to see stuff that you love. So,
yeah, it's like we're nerds. Deal with it. Sorry.
yes, right. And you're paying to live there. So, right. That's great. I love it.
Question 3. What book did you read as a child that had the most impact on you wanting to be a writer?
Oh, well, gosh. I would say because in first grade I read, what was it, Frog and Toad's Adventure, that
Hmm.
was my first book, my first inspiration as a child. And I wrote Mr. and Mrs. or yeah, Mr. and Mrs. Toad. So I would say that was my probably my first inspiration as a child. But then Chronicles of Narnia, of course,
Yeah.
would be my second as I got older.
So, question 4. If you do, I know you said that you were interested in doing audiobooks. Are
Yeah.
you going to record them yourself or look for somebody to do it for you?
Oh man. I've thought about recording it myself, but I don't know if I have the voice for that. And I want it to be good. I want it to sound professional because I believe that, you want to put excellence out there if you want
Mhm.
it to do well. So I've been actually looking into different people that do it. So Fiverr, there's actually someone local, but I haven't checked to see the cost. And so it kind of depends on the cost. And I don't know, I could try it maybe, but I'm kind of leaning towards someone else doing it because I don't know if I have the voice.
Well, that's one of those things. There are a lot of traditionally published authors who do read their own books, but then they also have a professional who does all the editing and producing and putting it all together. So it kind of
Um,
depends. Like you can
yeah.
always find somebody to put it together for you, but you actually read the book.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, we could try it. I do know some people that could actually do that. So,
I always think it's fun to read your own books.
yeah.
Question 5. In your study guide, one of your discussion topics is about fear and how your character Isabella struggled with her fear. When have you struggled with fear?
Oh, well, I think fear is something everyone struggles with. And I really wanted it in my book because growing up, we struggle with little fears. And I struggled with reading. And so I was always terrified to read in public.
Hmm.
And, there's times where maybe I was afraid of the dark. So I really wanted to have a character that struggled with fear because it's a real thing. It's something everyone has struggled with in their life, whether it's fear of doing something or, fear of the dark, or there's just so many different things that can affect people. And so for me, it was I struggled with reading. And so I was always mortified to read in front of people. And then there were times as a young girl, I was afraid of the dark. And for me, it was I overcame it by forcing myself to look under my bed.
Yeah.
Like, okay, there's nothing in here. So there's things in life where you push yourself forward to overcome things, and fear is one of those things you push against and you don't let it control you or limit you, because it can be crippling. It
Hmm.
can be a good thing. You want to be afraid of a bear,
Yeah.
run the other way. But you also don't want it to limit you. You still want to go out in nature. So
Mhm.
it can be a good and a bad if you let it control you and limit you.
Now, I
Oh,
have been asking a bonus question of people too. because with the holiday season coming up, and there's so many gift giving holidays between November and January, I'm trying to put together a list for our book buying guide of suggestions from our authors for gifts for people to buy for the reader in their life and the writer in their life.
Oh, okay.
So, what is your
Oh,
suggestion for a reader besides your book? Because that's always a
yeah.
given.
Right. Yes, buy my book.
Exactly.
Right. I would say knowing your reader you're buying for, so whether what genre they like, whether it's fantasy, mystery, sci-fi, historical fiction, really knowing what they like and then researching something that they haven't read before. So that's always the hard part. If their
Yeah.
reader is finding something they haven't read before. So I would say knowing your reader and which genre. For the writer, oh man. I mean, I know I like pens, I like journals. I'm a journaler.
Blank journals or guided journals?
I like blank journals. Sometimes I'll get creative and jot stuff down. I also like to draw, so, but not every writer likes to draw. So, sketchbook is always great. I drink coffee and tea, so coffee mugs are great. One that has something that is meaningful to them, like a Star Wars coffee cup.
Yeah.
Something
I
they
think a sketchbook is a really good idea. Nobody has said that. But I'm one of those people too. Whenever I'm doing my writing, I will sketch out the town or sketch out
yeah.
what somebody's house looks like, the floor plan, so that when I'm describing it, I can look at the floor plan and describe it while I'm looking at it.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, so a
Yeah.
sketchbook is brilliant. I love that.
Great. We're finding new stuff. I think for me, I think that's kind of it. I don't know. I can't think of anything else unless there's like a program that they want, like a writing, but that's always hard because you kind of really have to know
Yeah.
them. You're going to buy something like that.
What is next for you? Are you going to make this book into a full series, or is this a one and done kind of thing? And you're going to do something else from here on?
I am working on book two. It's called The Forgotten Kingdom. So I'm planning on doing a trilogy. It could be maybe 4 books, but definitely a trilogy. I already have it kind of set up in my head
Mhm.
what's coming next. So I'm working on The Forgotten Kingdom in the series. I don't want to give too much away because there's a lot in book two that you find out in book one. But the story continues and it's another adventure to another realm. So you will learn more about that in my book if you read it. And I've been working on that. I've hit some walls because I've been so focused on book one and marketing and all that, that
Mhm.
it's been hard to get into the headspace of writing book two. I have about 2 chapters, but I've been doing a lot of brainstorming. So I have lots of notes and kind of ideas of where I want it to go. And it's going to be a little different because it's going to be in a world where the technology is a lot greater.
That's interesting because usually, whenever somebody does a fantasy like that, it always seems like they go back into more of a medieval kind of time.
Yeah.
So that'll
Yeah.
be really interesting that they'll go somewhere that the technology is actually more advanced.
Yeah. So it is. It's going to be a big twist, and it's been taking a lot of brainstorming because it's not the same world, so I have to build a whole nother world.
Mhm.
So it's been taking a little bit more time, but because of Star Wars, you still have that futuristic, but they still kind of use like swords,
Yeah.
lightsabers, you know. So something similar, but not exactly,
I think that's one of the things that's so great about Star Wars is that it almost seems like an old Western with a little bit of technology thrown in.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. You still have, like those cultures that are still writing animals, but
Hmm.
then you have certain areas where there's like advanced technology. Yeah, it's like a mix.
Yeah. That's one of the things I think that is so fun about it. It's like you'll have somebody who is over here digging up sand to make a pit to sleep in, and then somebody's
Yeah.
coming in with a jetpack on.
Yeah. Yeah. And a
Like,
starship. Yeah. Yeah. It's fun though. I'm excited to finish it. So I need to get into the headspace of being creative and not so much on the marketing part.
And that's one thing that we've been talking to a lot of the authors about, that so many people, whenever they come into this, especially their first book, they think, okay, I'm going to write the book, I'm going to publish the book, I'm done. And it's like,
Oh,
actually, that's when it all begins.
right.
Because you have to start doing the marketing. And people are even saying, you should start 6 months before you publish to start
Yeah.
marketing the book. And then you go
Yeah.
another 6 months after, at least, when you
Yeah.
publish it. And honestly, it's like you never stop promoting your book. As long as it's available to buy, you're always promoting it, no matter how long it's been out.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. It'd be nice if we could just produce books and not have to worry about the marketing.
Yeah.
But it's such a huge part of writing. If you want your book to be successful, it's you have to learn how to market and put yourself out there and do events and book signings and all those things. And for me, I love connecting with my readers and talking with them. And I've done a few events where it's been so fun talking with them. Some of them have, because I've done a few locally, I've done like 3, and some of them have come back and they've read my book and they're like, your book is so great. It's such a wonderful feeling to have someone say, oh, your book was so wonderful, we loved it. It's like, oh, yay.
That's like, isn't it the best whenever somebody just gives you like an honest opinion, and they can sit
Yes.
there and tell you, this part made me cry, this part made me laugh out loud. And
Yes.
you know that you actually moved someone emotionally with your creation.
Yes. Yeah, it is the best feeling. And our readers are the ones that are helping us get our book out there. So it's so great to have input like that, to hear what they loved about it. Yeah, those reviews too.
Yeah. My favorite thing is always when somebody tells me that something in the book made them cry. And it's not that I want people to cry,
Yeah.
but just the fact that they actually cared so much about the characters that they felt for them that strongly.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
that's just incredible. I'm like, really? Okay, cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I've had some kids come up and talk to me too about just relating to the characters and overcoming fear and just how they could relate to them. And it just made me feel so good because I'm like, yes, like that's why I wrote that in there, is because kids struggle with fear. And, when you can get your reader to relate to your characters, it's so great because for me, it's like I'm showing them how these characters overcome obstacles and things like that. So if I can encourage my readers and inspire them to overcome fear, like, yes, that's why I wrote it.
So, what are you working on next? I mean, what is the absolute next thing that you're going to be doing?
Well, other than the Chronicles of the Hidden Realms, I would love to do actually some children's books for younger. And
Mm,
so I've had some ideas out there of, some different books for kids. One, too, because we were talking about it earlier, I am Native American, of doing a Native American book called Grandfather Tree. And
oh,
so
nice.
that's kind of on the back burner. I've been kind of thinking about it, but children's books would be another avenue I want to go down.
And would you illustrate them yourself, or would you get an illustrator?
Oh man, I love drawing, but I don't know if I'm that good of a drawer. Of course, I say that and coming over those obstacles of like, oh, I can't do that. But really, like as I've gotten older and started to sketch more, like I realized like, oh, I can draw more than I realized. So I don't know. I'd have to see, at that time if I'm getting inspired to create characters. There's so many amazing artists out there too. So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I have to see in the moment.
So now, where is your book available to buy?
My book is available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. Pretty much any bookstore can get it, but mostly Amazon. You can get it directly through me on my website. I do PayPal, but if you want a signed copy, you can order it directly from me.
And where is your website?
My website is www.leahannbrown.com. So you just look it up and everything's pretty much laid out on my website. So you just click the little link in there and it'll take you to PayPal.
And your website, I love it. I don't know who designed it, if you did this, but it is fantastic.
Thank you. I did design it myself. It's one of those things where it's like, oh, I never thought I would be designing a website, but there's so many resources out there, which is so great because YouTube has so many resources. I just found a YouTube and he took me step by step and it was great.
And speaking of resources, you have a resources page that has a writer's prompt on it.
I do, yes. I love encouraging kids to imagine. Part of the study guide is for kids and families and inspiring them to imagine. So I love putting prompts up because it inspires kids. You never know, you might inspire a kid to start writing a story. I'm actually working with a young girl, I'm mentoring her. We're part of a homeschool group called Logos, and she asked if she could kind of shadow me, which is a little interesting for a writer to have someone shadow them. So we've been meeting and talking about writing and world building and how you research for characters and your character building and those type of things. So she is actually writing a book and she's a junior in high school. So that has been fun to inspire the next generation to write.
Now, have you thought about producing any author swag to go with your book series?
You know, I have not ventured into that yet. It would be something I'd have to add to my website.
Yeah.
But I've thought about it just because I have some really great art that is in my book with dragons and the characters. And so I thought about doing that, but haven't done it yet.
So talk to Angela. Her stuff is fantastic. She could
Right?
probably give you tips.
Yeah, she is so wonderful about, helping. So yeah, I should talk to her. It's the next step, right?
I think we have gone through everything that I had in my notes. Is there anything that you think that we have missed that the listeners need to know about you or your work?
No, I think that's it. I feel like we covered a lot. This was great. I just want to say thank you so much for having me on here. This was wonderful. I love talking books and you're a wonderful host.
Oh, well, thank you. And whenever you get your second book out, you are welcome to come back. You have an open invitation.
Oh, thank you so much. This was so fun.
So there you have my interview with Leah Ann Brown. She is a fantastic person and her book is phenomenal. If you have middle grade readers that you are looking for Christmas gifts for, you need to go check out the links in the description of this podcast. Go to the website, buy her book. Speaking of buying books for the holidays, don't forget we have our Book Banter magazine, which is a companion to this podcast, Book Banter with Dianne Burkhart. And we are getting ready to release our year-in book buying guide that has buy links for every author who has been on Book Banter with Dianne Burkhart since season 1. It is a 70-page shopper with so many books. You will not believe how many books are in here. It was incredible to put this thing together, let me tell you. We have got picture books for children. We have got young readers. We have got middle grade readers. We have got young adult fiction. We have got nonfiction. We have got cookbooks. We have got every genre you can possibly think of. Memoirs, theater books, books about Disney history. We've got romance. We have paranormal romance. We have women's fiction, science fiction, fantasy, horror. Everything you can think of is in this shopper. If you are looking for books for yourself or for somebody else, go check out Book Banter Magazine's Year-in Book Buying Guide. It's going to be your one-stop shop for some of the best published authors. It is really incredible. So go check it out. Go to burkhartbooks.com. The link is in the description of the podcast. Check out all of the Book Banter magazines because, frankly, every issue has something that you're going to love. We have got recipes in every issue, and there are 2 recipes in the year-end book buying guide from some fabulous cookbook authors. You don't want to miss out. Well, I think it's time that we wrap up this episode. If you happen to be celebrating Thanksgiving, I hope you have a wonderful holiday. And if you don't celebrate, I hope you have a fantastic week. And now it's time for you all to go forth, check out Book Banter's year-end book buying guide, and be really happy about all the fabulous authors that are inside.